People often say, if you don't get a Tesla, then, well, you're going to face one challenge, which is using electric car chargers that often don't work. Well, now that Tesla's changing their network slowly, but it's happening, to allow EVs from other brands to charge, that could be a good solution for the future. But the question still remains, why is it that so many electric car chargers all around the world, but in particular in the United States, just don't seem to work? Well, there is actually some good reasons for it. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Sam Evans, and thank you so much to our Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. Really couldn't do this without you. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, that would be amazing. I'll put a link in the description, or you can just Google the Electric Viking Patreon. There's quite a few reasons why chargers that are not part of Tesla's charger network don't work. For one, they are sometimes not built very well. Another one, parts break on them quite often. Information screens often freeze. Payment systems malfunction. Copper thieves steal the cords. Vandals damage the charging plugs because they hate electric cars. No one knows why, they just do. But these are just some of the many reasons why chargers all around North America are, well, for the most part, not working. In an office in San Jose, California, ChargePoint Holdings runs a torture lab. It's here that the operator of the US's largest network of EV chargers subjects its chargers to extreme temperatures and rain, and it puts them through simulated dust storms and earthquakes. Now, I don't know how you simulate an earthquake. I can imagine simulating a dust storm, but an earthquake? That sounds a bit crazy. Anyway, they say they do it. Pulley systems tug on charging cords over and over, mimicking years of customer use, and a different device slams a steel ball against chargers to see if they'll crack. Every year, the lab tests 3,300 chargers, which can then be deployed into the wild. Basically, they're belting them, making sure that they actually still work, and then putting them out in the wild. You take this thing that's expensive, you basically burn it up, said ChargePoint's CEO. ChargePoint's process is geared at fixing one of the EV transition's most pressing and significant problems, one that does affect people on a daily basis, one that is extremely frustrating and, well, could leave you in the lurch, basically leave you in a position where you think, oh no, my battery doesn't have a lot of charge. Where am I going to go? This has happened many times. Unfortunately, public charging stations just seem to have bad reliability. Parts break, information screens freeze, lots of different reasons, which I just mentioned before. Apparently, even some vandals will try to stuff them with food, including meat. Don't know why they would do that. Anyhow, in the US, nascent networks mean that if the machines at one station aren't working, there could be another one nearby. Now, strangely enough, for some reason, Tesla's chargers don't seem to suffer as many malfunctions. In fact, nowhere near as many malfunctions, even with people vandalizing them. 10 years ago, or around a decade, early EV adopters were willing to put up with unreliable public chargers. However, now people just don't want to deal with this, and I get it. Joe Biden has made electric cars a cornerstone in his climate economic policies for good reason. He doesn't want China to take over the global automotive marketplace, which they are currently doing. Unless America makes EVs, then that will happen. He's devoting $5 billion to the build-out of one of the world's most impressive charging networks along major roads all around the United States. $2.5 billion will go to charging within communities. So that means $7.5 billion is going to the rollout of probably the world's most interconnected charging network that's ever been deployed. The goal is convincing every American driver to eventually go electric. I don't think this will be hard, but obviously having chargers that work is a big part of this. It's a leap of faith for many people to get an EV, their first EV. And it's one they may not be willing to make if they don't trust that public chargers will actually work. We're really at the point right now where we have to address these issues before we get along with EV adoption. said Brent Gruber, Executive Director of Global Automotive Research for JD Power. The mindset is changing from the early adopters who expected some bumps in the road to the mainstream consumer who doesn't want to put up with these issues and just wants the chargers to work every time they go to use them. JD Power regularly surveys EV drivers in the US about their charging experiences, working in collaboration with the PlugShare app that many drivers use to locate stations. 2 years ago, 15% of respondents said they'd been unable to charge at a public station. Now it's 21.5%. It's heading in the wrong direction. Public chargers that aren't Tesla chargers seem to be getting worse. It's not just a problem in the United States though. ZapMap Limited, whose app tracks live data from about 70% of public chargers in the United Kingdom, found last year that 6% were out of service at any given moment. It appears that number is now rising. The company's annual EV charging survey identified reliability as the top concern for EV drivers in the United Kingdom. A Boston Consulting Group survey released this year found reliability to be the main criteria drivers use in China when choosing a public charging station, ranking it above speed, ease of use, and price. And it's one of the key reasons why Tesla is still selling so well in China, in spite of an incredibly crowded electric car market, where there's more than 100 different electric car brands to choose from, and more than 90 different electric SUV models. Still, the Tesla Model Y stands out. One of the reasons, the charging network. There isn't a single reason for EV charge failures. There's many. Some of the problems, particularly with older machines, can be chalked up to a new technology going through the usual learning curve of improvements, all while sitting outside exposed to the weather and exposed to stupid people. There have been cycles of needed upgrades, such as replacing modems to deal with 5G wireless internet service, the myriad networks, retail outlets, and garage owners who own the machines don't always stay on top of maintenance. And chargers must communicate with a rapidly expanding variety of cars. To that end, the precise scope of the problem isn't exactly known. It's different in every US state. EV drivers face a complex landscape of competing charging companies, each with its own stations and its own app. And there's no central repository of data on station performance. I mean, this is one of the key reasons why Tesla's network is so fondly. There's one app, there's one brand, there's one network. There's no confusion. However, one widely cited 2022 study of fast charging stations in the San Francisco Bay Area, excluding Tesla's superchargers, found that about 25% of the 657 fast chargers weren't working. JD Power doesn't disclose reliability rankings. Gruber said the worst performance charging companies leave drivers unable to plug in 40% of the time. That's terrible. With public charging, it's a bit of the wild, wild west, he said. Tesla proved that reliable charging is possible though. The all-electric automaker runs a global network of 45,000 and growing superchargers, which can add up to 300 miles of range in around 20 minutes. Tesla consistently gets the highest customer satisfaction rankings of any charging company in JD Power surveys, Gruber said. Its drivers report charger downtime of less than 3%. You can see the enormous difference between Tesla's chargers and other brands. But Tesla has the advantage of keeping everything in-house. Until recently, superchargers could only be used by Tesla cars and didn't need to work with the growing array of other EVs and batteries. Tesla also owns its supercharger network, whereas many of the public chargers installed over the past decade in the US are owned by whoever owns the parking lot where they're located. Such property owners, Gruber said, don't have a strong incentive to maintain their machines. Automotive News says that as charging networks expand, companies that deploy public chargers insist they are getting more reliable, not less reliable. Now, is that true? Let me know your experience in the comments. Has that been your experience? Everyone's experience will be different here. It depends on what state you're in, depends on what country you're in. But let me know your experience in the comments. Property owners who buy chargers from companies like Blink Charging Company and ChargePoint often sign service contracts for those companies to maintain or replace the chargers when needed. Some site owners let those agreements lapse over time, allowing the machines to fall into disrepair, said Gruber. Charging companies are also designing newer machines with individual components that can be swapped out in the field if they malfunction, making it cheaper, quicker, and easier to fix them. This also means that things like modems and screens can be replaced over time. These chargers aren't like a phone where you're going to replace it every couple of years because the technology moves. These chargers are going to last the better part of a decade, if not more. Charging companies also acknowledge and admit that the first few waves of public chargers installed over the past decade weren't very dependable, in fact, let customers down many times. Everyone's first generation equipment was just that, first generation, said Michael Farkas, founder and board member of Blink, one of the largest charging companies in the US. People didn't really understand all the impacts that being out in the elements would have. Snow, salt, rain, and other human beings. Farkas is particularly critical of the first few generations of DC fast chargers, which can top off an EV battery far faster than more common level 2 chargers. Complete garbage, he said. Lots of maintenance required, offline all the time. We stopped deploying them until we were satisfied that the issues were resolved. As EV adoption rises at a rapid pace in the United States, we're up more than 100% this year versus last year. The majority of car charging will take place at the home. The only thing is, a lot of people do live in apartments, and they'll continue to need these charging networks more often than those who don't live in their own home. And chargers are a convenience that in itself are one of the best selling points for electric driving. However, with average US electric vehicle range approaching 300 miles, more and more owners will be going on road trips and needing these chargers to be reliable. This is why the Biden administration this spring established a big set of rules and regulations squarely at broken chargers. Among them, any federally funded charger must be functional more than 97% of the time. Basically, the Biden administration looked at the reliability of Tesla's chargers and said, you must meet that. If you don't, we will withdraw funding. This could be a good thing. This could force charging networks to deliver a better product more of the time, a lot more of the time. What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.